Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This is the Out of Class edition with Ben, Janesh, and Matt. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lifelong Learner. Welcome, Ben. Welcome, Matt. How are we all doing?
Oh, he's really good, mate, but not as good as you. Look at you. Where are you, mate?
I am upstate Minnesota on a lake at the moment. So last week we were in sunny Fiji, and it's a little grey today, but it's like 24 degrees. The water's like about 25. And on a lake here, we're in the lake house with a bunch of cousins and all the kids, and lots of fun at the moment. So we got in 3 days ago.
That's such an American term, a lake house. We don't have lake houses in Australia, do we, really?
Yeah, because they don't allow you to build so close. So this is like, I guess it's like a equivalent to our caravan parks on a big lake, right? But there's like, let me see if I can switch this around here. So there's a house there, two more cabins there, and we're in like a lodge just up that driveway there.
Is it a campground, or are they separate individual homes?
No, they're individual. Technically, they're individual homes, but you can. Some of them are owned by the park, so you can rent them out. Yeah, but there's no real camp in here. So, but it's pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Full blown holiday mode, mate, or still just kind of edging away into it?
That's a great question. Full blown halfway. We just onboarded the staff member 2 weeks ago before coming over here, which has been good and it's been challenging. Where she's in training mode at the moment, so which has been great. So we have an offshore staff member, and she's been helping a lot with the podcast actually, which has been great. So it's been checking in with her. It's good because it keeps a bit of forward momentum going with that. So half and half. So 90% holiday, mate. Only 10%. Don't take too much of my bandwidth.
Mate, I wanted to ask, because this is a short episode, listeners. This is going to be like a punchy. This is the holiday episode. I wanted to ask this question, and I think it's perfect. I'm in Australia. Janesh is in the US. Maddie's in Lombok. And this comes from the reason I asked this question is Logan's in America at the moment, and I spoke to him on the phone yesterday, and he said, "Dad, on the coast, there's some really stunning properties and wealthy people, and it's really cool." He said, "Inland, there's some incredible national parks, stunning, beautiful people, beautifully kept grounds, blah blah blah." He said, "But there's also these zones where you see the worst of humanity." He said he walked down there's a really long street in Denver. It's the world's longest street or something. Have you heard about it? And he thought, I got to go for a walk down this really long street. So he heads off, and he said it was full of druggos, gangs, people that were confused about whether they were toasters.
Zombie town?
Mm-hmm.
It was like, sorry?
Is that Zombie Town, Dinesh? Is that the one where
it's just
people are on
crank? In Denver. So in Colorado, it's just the longest street. It's not the best, not the most socioeconomic street out there.
Yeah.
Homeless
like
street.
tents, like heaps of homeless people. He said and he just felt really sad. He felt disillusioned, sad, and confused that humanity could allow that to happen. He said, I've been in India and in Egypt. They're better than what we saw in a wealthy country like America. And he said, we just don't see any of that in Australia. And so I just want to dedicate this episode to the contrast between countries and what do we love about the countries, and then what maybe we don't love about the countries. And then particularly, I guess, to wrap up, how good is Australia?
Yeah. Maddie, start us off, mate.
Yeah, well, that's been my experience when we were in LA. LA is a great example of that. Like the upper echelons of, the 1% right next door to complete, slum. trash everywhere. Like same experience for me. And I think you see that in Canada, parts of Canada as well. It's definitely in a lot of these real top, renowned first world countries, which is mind blowing, except Australia. I guess Australia does have only 24 million people, which makes it a bit easier. But yeah, that was my experience traveling as well in some of these places. Paris was the same. That blew me away. Like Paris is this iconic place. You go back 4 kilometers out of the main tourist hub, and there's dog shit everywhere and bins turned over, and it looks like a slum. And I was like, this can't be Paris. There's just this 4 kilometer area where they keep pristine and then poverty.
So how does
So,
that contrast with Lombok? So, I guess what's your experience of Lombok slash Bali, and how does that contrast with maybe the US? I haven't been to the US, but with US, and how does it contrast with Australia?
well, I think Lombok's more like the other way around, right? Like, I don't know what it is because it's the meeting of developed meets undeveloped. And this is an undeveloped place slowly developing. But for some reason, it doesn't feel like there's poverty, but it's not the same as in my experience, these first world countries that should be, the standard of living should be higher, you'd think, for everyone. Like, but even though the standard of living is a lot lower, like there's poverty here. I don't know, there's community. So it doesn't look as bad, in my opinion. Like you see families, yeah, they live in shanty little huts. And then you'll see a beautiful restaurant not too far away. But the shanty hut, there's still this calm energy. They're walking around doing their thing, they've got a routine and they've got family surrounded by young kids. I don't know, it's less confronting almost than
Can I
LA, where
ask,
it's
Daddy?
like,
Can I ask it like just to define that? Have they got less in their bank account versus are they poor? So, because I
What's the
think
definition? What's the
you could
definition
have,
of poor? What's the
well,
definition of
that's
poor
my
though?
point, right? Could you have $100 in your bank account and not be poor? And could
Hundred
you
percent
have $1 million in your bank account and
and be
behave and act like you're poor?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think
yeah.
poor and rich. You look at like I think we talked about a few episodes back, like when we talked about the blue zones where people don't have much and they've got longevity and they're happy, right? And they feel rich. Doesn't matter. But really, they're maybe earning $5, $10 a day. That's enough for their rice. That's all they need, or their chicken. That's all they really need for food. They don't really need anything else. And I think you can be rich and and feel poor, or maybe a better word is feel empty. Maybe I think,
You can have
but
money. Can I just say, Janesh, you can have money in the bank and feel poor, but you can
yes,
have no money in the bank and be rich.
Yeah,
yeah,
So I
for
think the
sure.
rich and poor is like richness of what? Poorness of what?
yeah.
Mm,
And what's your
Poor in
currency?
spirit.
Is richness of life worth it, or richness in a bank account worth it? Like,
mm,
I think for me personally, I think richness in life is probably higher weighted than richness in the bank account. And I'm
mm,
not like living on cloud nine. I know richness in the bank account does lead to better resources, more freedom, and all that. But it's all like it's all that same thing. I'm a firm believer, and I've said to both of you, like, why do we work for? Why do we work? Why do we work so hard? Why do we strive? And like, oh, we're building something. Yeah, but you got to enjoy it. Like, don't enjoy it at the end.
mm,
We may get hit by a bus. We may die at the end. Like, but if we can't enjoy it now, like, I don't know. I think that is some richness. If you can enjoy now and like enjoy like your richness of life, right? Because I think a lot of people sometimes have a high bank account, high bank balance, I should say, but they feel poor. They feel
mm.
poor. There's no community. There's no meaning. There's nothing there. They're like, what am I actually doing here? even though they've got all the resources in the world, which is sad.
Can I ask, mate, so what do you reckon? Why do those people in that street in Denver, why do they behave poor when they might have more in their bank account than some of the families in Lombok? They've got access to maybe Social Security. I don't know what it is. Let's call it 100 US a week, 50 US a week, which is more than what the people in Lombok get. Why do they behave poor?
Mm.
Do you think it's community? Like in Southeast Asia, I would say Southeast Asia and probably maybe parts of Europe or definitely Middle East, where there's community, there's tribes, there's villages, there's community where you go next door to borrow
For anything.
a cup of sugar, avocado, whatever, right? And then at the same time they come knocking. Like, I don't think Western culture, well, Australia included, and America, I don't think they do community well compared to Eastern. And what do you think, Matt? Like in terms of Asia and all that?
Yeah, like community is a buzzword in our countries, you know? Everyone's striving for community. No one knows how to fucking do it because we live in these big houses. You know what I mean? Like, I think that might be it, the difference between poverty and, you know, and it's not money. We're here because the, yeah, as you said, like one of the telling things for me is that no one has a fridge, right? Most people can't afford a fridge, so they don't have a fridge. There's just so many things that lead to sharing. You don't have a fridge and you've just caught 15 fish. So you cook the fish and you share with everyone, anyone near you, because you don't want to waste it. And the next day, someone's got heaps of corn, so they're sharing corn. There's just this sharing is just part of life. That's how you survive. It's not let's let's build a community. It's like let's try and survive tomorrow. So everyone leans on everyone and shares everything. And families are huge. So the people you're sharing with, you're related to in some distant way. Like Indonesian families are massive. So I think that probably has something to do with it, that you're always sharing resources. So you can have $5 in your bank account and someone's going to knock on your door and say, hey, you know, I got this, come share it. And so, yeah, you might have in Denver, in LA, in some of these big cities where you don't have many people who are your true friends, or you've fallen out with your social group and you don't have much money. You know, maybe you do have $100 in the bank account, but you're in a country where everything's quite expensive. So you feel like isolated. You don't have enough money to do much. You end up in a tent on the side of the street, maybe.
Why do you
Then enter in drugs.
Yeah. Why do you think in Western culture, this goes for both of you, like what compared to what you were saying, Matt, then in terms of sharing to that level, why do you think we're like Australia, I say we're like is in Australia, like why do you think we live in a somewhat for the majority, not everyone, like a scarcity mindset where they hoard their resources and they go, this is mine. And they don't want to give as much as people that have less than us, they give more.
Yeah. That
why do you think we do that? Why?
It's it's a mindset thing. Like that's common, that pattern of poor people are the most generous. Like TikTok and Instagram has made so many, you know, those videos where they kind of gotcha videos where they ask a homeless guy for, you know, the last piece of pizza. They've set up their camera and they're filming him and someone's giving him a pizza and they ask him and he offers it straight away to the next person. But then they go, you know, they walk around and they ask people who are sitting in, you know, a cafe or just bought, you know, someone relatively wealthy who's just bought a brand new pizza. And this homeless guy will ask, oh, can I have a piece? And he said, fuck off, mate. It's my pizza, leave me alone. It's some kind of mindset. Like when you have nothing, you want to share. You know what I mean? It's like there's this quote, some people are so poor, all they have is money. And poor people, they're rich in other ways because they've got nothing. And I think when you've got no money, you become more versatile. You're like, how can I meet some needs here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually through human connection. What do you think, Benny?
What do you think, Benny?
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying is true. I think community is a big piece. I think for me, I wonder whether it's the fact that there is a contrast, there is a tension between where they're at and where they want to be. And in that tension, there is fear. And fear drives all sorts of behaviors and all sorts of feelings of self-worth and self-esteem and the ability to communicate and create connection and all those other things. And there's this paralyzation. Paralyzation, is that a word? Paralyzed?
Should be.
Angry, that comes from this tension between where they are and their expectation. You know, Robbins talks about that. Happiness is when your life equals your life expectations. And in Lombok, the expectation is I'll have a roof over my head and there'll be food. Like that's it, right? And I'll have family and community. Whereas in Australia, the expectation gets created that I'll have the next car. The expectation is that happiness is the new iPhone 15. Happiness is, and there's a tension between I've only got the 12, but 15, if I had the 15, I'd be different, right? So now there's a tension between where I'm at and where I should be. And within that tension, there's fear of, am I worthy? Am I enough? Have I got enough? Am I whole enough? Does my life really matter? You know, all this stuff kind of comes up by this tension. And so I wonder whether a wealthy country like the US, there is such a high level of should compared to where some people are, that in this huge amount of tension, fear drives people's behavior to cause them to end up on the street. Whereas in Lombok, it doesn't exist. I think it's amazing that such a big and powerful country and wealthy country like the US can have so much homelessness and so much poverty.
And
and I know, Janesh, you said, you know, Australia is only 20-something thousand people, but we're the size of the US.
Yeah.
We're the resources perspective, you know.
Well, I think we do a little bit better. And I think there's probably this trip we haven't seen as much yet. We haven't hit the West Coast yet. That comes to the later part of our trip. But I think there's a heap here. And I think there's no... I don't know. I don't know if there's like I think there's a different attitude to it, or I think everywhere, I think Australia included, I think needs to do better in terms of like helping the homeless find work, not give them a handout. Handout's not the answer. I don't think. It's like there's lots of work around, right? Like there's like a couple of years ago or a year ago, there was a hiring shortage, right? But like even for laborers, like go do the hard work. Go do the hard work. And a running coach that I'm working with now, he said to me, he goes, last week I did a workout, I sent him a text again, oh, that felt shit. And he goes, look, continue to do the hard things. Don't forget that. And that's just now stuck with me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And there's a book that I just yesterday got on Audible. I'll put in the show notes, called Hard Things or Do Hard Things. And it's fascinating, where it's like, go for a run without your AirPods in. Like start small. Like in a first world country, we start small. We're doing some of these things. And it's like, oh yeah. It's like a common thing. Like don't reach for your phone when it buzzes at a cafe. And usually it buzzes, we got to reach for it. We go, oh, yep, we'll reach for it, see what it goes. Start small, and it's super, super interesting. But I don't know.
Hey, that's interesting you bring that book up, because I spoke about that book yesterday.
No way. Are you
I
serious?
spoke about do hard things yesterday.
What?
Like on the radio, I had a guest come on and he was talking about doing the uncomfortable, and I said, "Oh, there's a
The
good book
cover,
called Do Hard Things."
right? The mountain peak on the cover.
Correct.
Ah, that's a good book.
There you go.
Mm.
Right,
There you
I
go.
was listening last night too. Oh wow! Right,
Yeah,
beautiful.
small world or synchronistic events or whatever that might mean. Hey guys, I'm conscious of time. Janesh, you have got, speaking of being poor,
Doing
you've got a
hard things.
speedboat to get onto from your lake house.
Oh, shut up. Well, you know what?
Is it
And yet
chauffeured?
none of them I own. I'm richness in my community. That the community that I am in, we're fortunate enough to be in. I'll show you for the viewers. You can see this. We're on
Disgusting.
really bad. Last week we were in Fiji, but that car. By the way, Ben spent 9 years in Fiji, but that's okay. No, and no,
Mate,
no, and
mate,
it's only water. It's only water
yeah,
here. It's only water.
Sure, mate.
yeah. That's true happiness, mate. That what you've got there, that is happiness. Anything but that is unhappiness.
But you know what? That to be honest, in terms of I'll try and justify my position here. The community,
Precision.
well, position had a few. Uh, the community. So
It's 9 a.m. in America, listeners.
no, it is five, quarter
Strong
past.
water. Keeping up your hydration there, mate.
Yeah, no, it's all about hydration. But the community. So for our kids, there's like 10 cousins, like in their generation, which is epic. Like that
Mm.
community, like we could be in, well, we are in bumfuck nowhere, but we could be no lake, no nothing, and it wouldn't matter. Like them playing board games, cards, playing in the playground, like that's richness. Like
Mm.
I know we're going to takeaways, like that is richness. Where we're like, oh, we don't need to do anything. Like we just came from Fiji and we're in a, like, don't get me wrong, we're in a very nice resort, and nice amenities, like very good service. Right now, it's like we don't need any of that. We just need community, the people, like family around us, some friends, and it's good. Like the days are full. Like my heart is full, cup is full. So
Mm.
my takeaway from this is like if you wanna feel rich, is like what experiences, moments can you put yourself into to feel rich? And I think whatever situation you're in, rich, like bank account, wealthy, poor, whatever, you can make that work. But it's
Mm.
a choice.
Maddie, for you,
Yeah.
take home.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing from Janesh and I'm agreeing that it's the community, and whether that's like a community, you don't have kids, you don't have an extended family, it's connection with people. That's what's going to make you happy and not feel poor, and that's what some of these poor countries have is big families, lots of people that they share everything with, the good, the bad, the resources, so they feel rich, and some of these poor people that started this conversation that are homeless under a bridge by themselves have a story, and it's probably a sad one that doesn't involve people looking out for them. They're alone, or there's this sense of loneliness. And definitely, when I've spoken to some homeless people, there's been this crazy story, and no one there to bail them out, no one there to help them, no one to lend them the money that they needed in that situation, or someone to be there for them at their darkest moment. And so they feel alone, and then they become alone. They're isolated. It's really sad. And I think the reminder is, if you want to feel rich, spend the time and invest the energy in people, as well
Mm-hmm.
as, financial goals, but also
Mm-hmm.
connection, because you can have all the money in the world, and if you don't have people to share it with, you're homeless. Yeah. Benny?
Yeah, I think all of that both Janesh and you have said, Maddie, and I think also not going through life, and it happens, we're human, but just recognizing when we're in a scarcity mindset, when we're in a I don't have enough or I'm not enough, this scarcity mindset drives fear, and fear causes to not behave at our best. And so the idea of what you have is enough, how could you make it enough, and not be driven by fear in what we do. I think it's it's the contrast and the tension that gets created because we think what we have isn't enough, and we're driven to get that thing not out of desire, not out of passion, but out of a fear that where I am is not enough, versus a resourceful meaning for pursuing that thing.
And I think we just say, Ben, like you're driven to not for the journey, to the notion that thinking that once I get there, I will be enough, or I will be happy, or I will feel rich. And like newsflash, that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Numbers in a bank account aren't going to make you feel more whole than you are right now. Actually, more money, more problems, probably. Yeah.
Well, that is it, boys. The international laser edition of good stuff, guys. See ya.
Till next time. Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Lifelong Learner. If you like this episode and want to know more and hear other episodes, head over to lifelonglearnerpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, where you'll be the first to know when new podcast episodes come out. And if you want to say hello, tell us a joke, or ask us a question, send us an email at hello@lifelonglearnerpodcast.com. Thanks again.